My name is Maya Whitaker. I'm 18 years old. And by the time my mother smiled, placed one hand over her stomach and said, "We're having another baby," I had already raised enough children to know exactly what that sentence meant. It did not mean a nursery. It did not mean tiny socks or soft blankets or happy family photos. It meant another crib in the house, another body crying at 2 in the morning, another child handed to me with the same tired sentence I had heard since I was 7. "Maya, you're so good with kids." People say that like it is a compliment. In my house, it was a life sentence. But I need to go back before that night, before the 7th baby, before the police, before my grandparents showed up with faces so angry they barely looked like themselves. I need to explain how a daughter becomes a second mother without anyone ever asking her permission. My parents were young when they had me. My mom was 19, my dad was 20. They liked to describe it as a love story that started early, but even as a kid, I understood there was nothing romantic about two people having a baby before either of them knew how to pay a bill on time. For the first few years of my life, we lived with my maternal grandparents. Those years were the safest part of my childhood. My grandfather Harold was the kind of man who could fix a broken cabinet hinge, a dead car battery, and a crying child with the same calm hands. Everyone called him Gramps. His garage smelled like motor oil, sawdust, and peppermint gum. He had tools lined up on the wall like they belonged in a museum. He taught me how to hold a flashlight steady, how to sort screws by size, how to listen when something mechanical sounded wrong. "Everything tells you what it needs," he used to say, tapping the hood of an old car. "You just have to stop making noise long enough to hear it." My grandmother Nana was warmth in human form. She baked when she was worried. She cleaned when she was angry. She hummed old songs while folding towels and somehow made even silence feel safe. Their house was small, but it never felt crowded. There was always soup on the stove, always clean sheets, always someone who asked me how school went and waited for the real answer. My parents lived there too, technically, but they treated that house like a hotel with free childcare. They came home late, slept past breakfast, complained about being tired. My dad played video games on the couch, while Gramps tried to teach him how to change oil. "Why would I need to know that?" Dad would say, without looking away from the screen. "That's what roadside assistance is for." Gramps would stare at him for a second, then look at me instead. "Come here, Maya. At least one of you should learn something useful." My mom was not cruel back then. Not loudly. Not in a way a child could name. She was just absent in little ways that stacked up. She handed me to Nana whenever a friend called. She forgot school papers in the bottom of her purse. She promised park trips, and then said she was too tired. She loved the idea of being a mother more than the daily work of being one. When you are 5, you do not think, "My parents are irresponsible." You think, "Nana makes better pancakes." You think, "Gramps always shows up." You think, "Maybe this is normal." Then my mother got pregnant again. I remember being excited. I really was. I thought a baby meant I would have someone to love, someone who belonged to me in the way my grandparents belonged to me. I thought a sibling meant games, secrets, shared blankets during thunderstorms. I did not understand that my parents saw a new baby as proof they were adults. They moved us out before my brother was born. "Time for us to stand on our own feet," Dad said, carrying a box of dishes Nana had packed for him. Gramps looked at the box, then at my father. "Standing requires balance," he said. Dad laughed like it was a joke. It was not. The rental house across town looked tired before we even moved in. 2 bedrooms, thin walls, brown carpet with stains nobody could explain. A kitchen so narrow 2 people could not pass each other without turning sideways. The backyard was mostly dirt, with one crooked fence panel that slammed in the wind. My mother walked through it like she had been given keys to a palace. "Our own place," she whispered. I wanted to be happy for her, so I smiled. Then my brother Caleb was born. Caleb had lungs like a fire alarm and the stamina of someone training for war. He cried when he was hungry. He cried when he was full. He cried when he was tired, wet, bored, held, not held, rocked, not rocked. At first, my parents treated my help like a cute novelty. Maya, can you bring mommy a diaper? Maya, sing to your brother for a second. Maya, watch him while I shower. I was 7. I liked feeling useful. I liked when mom smiled at me and said, "You're such a big girl." That was how the trap started. With praise. Then the requests became expectations. If Caleb cried, everyone looked at me. If he needed a bottle, I was told where it was. If mom was on the phone, I bounced him on my hip. If dad was watching TV, I was supposed to keep Caleb quiet. One night, I stood in the doorway holding my screaming baby brother while my father leaned back on the couch. "Dad, he won't stop." He did not look away from the screen. "Walk him around." My arms hurt. "Maya, don't start. I worked today." I remember looking down at Caleb's red, furious face and feeling something strange in my chest. Not anger yet, just confusion. Because I was tired too. But nobody seemed interested in that. By 8 years old, I knew how to warm bottles, test milk on my wrist, change diapers, and rock a baby until my shoulder went numb. I knew which floorboards creaked outside Caleb's room. I knew how to microwave canned pasta without burning the edges. I knew not to call my parents unless something was bleeding, broken, or on fire. They started leaving me alone with him for quick errands. Then dinner dates. Then whole evenings. The first time they left me for a movie, Mom wrote instructions on a yellow sticky note and placed it on the fridge. Bottle at 7, bed by 8. Call only for emergencies. I stared at the note after they left. I was 8 years old. Everything felt like an emergency. Caleb screamed for 40 minutes after his bottle. He spit up on his pajamas. I changed him badly. One side of the diaper loose, one side too tight. He cried harder. I cried too, but quietly, because I had already learned crying did not bring help. When my parents came home, Mom wrinkled her nose. "Why does it smell in here?" "I changed him," I said, "but I think I did it wrong." Dad sighed like I had disappointed him professionally. "You need to pay attention, Maya." That was the first time I understood that helping badly was worse than not helping at all. But not helping was never an option. Over the years, more babies came. First Caleb, then Mason, who broke everything he touched. Then Lily, who spit food into napkins, cups, plates, and sometimes directly onto the floor. Then Noah, who could destroy a clean room in less than 5 minutes. Then Oliver, who followed me so closely I could not go to the bathroom without his fingers under the door. Then baby Emma, whose crib eventually ended up in my room. 6 children. 2 parents. And me, the oldest daughter. The reliable one. The mature one. The one everyone praised, while quietly handing me more weight. Family dinners were never dinners. They were crowd control with frozen pizza. Mom would pull burnt slices from the oven, Dad would complain about money, Caleb would yell because someone looked at him wrong, Mason would snap a plastic fork in half, Lily would peel toppings off and drop them on the floor, Noah would crawl under the table, and Oliver would cling to my chair like I might disappear. "Can you handle that?" Mom would say. That. Not him. Not your brother. That. As if the chaos had become weather, and I was the umbrella. One night, Lily spat chewed pepperoni onto the floor. I stared at it, exhausted. "Mom, that's disgusting." Mom barely looked up. "She's just being a kid. She does it every night." Dad pointed at the floor. "Then pick it up before someone steps on it." I looked at him. He looked back like the answer was obvious. So I picked it up. Because in that house, the mess was never created by me. But somehow, it always became mine. By the time I turned 14, I didn't measure my life in years anymore. I measured it in how many kids I could get to sleep before midnight. There's a specific kind of exhaustion that doesn't come from work or school. It comes from being needed constantly by people who never stop needing. That was my normal. Mornings started before the sun. Not because I was disciplined, but because Emma would wake up crying, and if I didn't get to her fast enough, she'd wake everyone else. I'd stumble out of bed, half blind, warm a bottle, rock her until my arms shook, then try to get ready for school, while keeping Oliver from following me into the shower. "Stay here," I'd whisper, closing the bathroom door. 2 seconds later, I'd hear his voice on the other side. "Maya?" Always that same small, panicked tone. Like I might disappear if he couldn't see me. By the time I made it to school, I already felt like I'd lived half a day. I'd sit in class, staring at the board, trying to focus while my brain replayed everything I still had to do when I got home.
Homework.
Dinner. Bath time. Bedtime. Repeat. Teachers started noticing. "Maya, are you okay?" my math teacher asked once, crouching beside my desk. "You've been falling asleep in class." "I'm fine," I said automatically, because explaining the truth felt impossible. "Hi, I'm not okay because I'm basically raising 5 kids every night while my parents decompress from the stress of existing." That didn't sound real. That sounded like something people would smile at politely and not believe. So I kept saying I was fine. And I kept getting more tired. Public outings were the worst. They should have been normal. Grocery stores, Target runs, quick trips for school supplies. Instead, they felt like walking into a stage where everyone was watching me fail. One afternoon, we went to a supermarket. Within 5 minutes, Caleb was yelling because he wanted a toy from the seasonal aisle. Mason knocked over a stack of cereal boxes. Lily licked the handle of the shopping cart and laughed when I told her to stop. Noah disappeared and reappeared, dragging a bag of rice twice his size. Oliver wrapped himself around my legs so tightly I could barely walk. I was trying to hold everything together when a woman nearby gave me that look. You know the one. Judgment mixed with pity. "Maybe you should control your kids," she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. I opened my mouth, closed it. Because what was I supposed to say? They're not my kids. I didn't choose this. I'm just trying to survive it. Before I could respond, my mom shrugged. "They're just being kids," she said lightly. Like nothing was wrong. Like this chaos was normal. Like I was invisible. I wanted the floor to open up and swallow me. Car rides were no better. 7 people crammed into a minivan that always smelled like something sour and unidentifiable. Someone was always crying. Someone was always hitting someone else. My parents argued about directions, money, or whose turn it was to deal with whatever crisis was happening in the back seat. And me? I sat in the middle row, twisting my body at impossible angles, handing out snacks, breaking up fights, wiping tears, and trying to keep everything from exploding. I don't remember a single peaceful drive from those years. Not one. By high school, the rules of my life had fully shifted. Helping was no longer something I did. It was who I was. Friday nights weren't mine. Weekends weren't mine. Even school breaks weren't mine. "Don't make plans," Mom would say casually. "We might need you." Might. Like there was ever a question. Like I wasn't already scheduled without being asked. I stopped accepting invitations because it hurt less than canceling them later. I stopped explaining my situation because people didn't understand. "You can't come again?" my friend Lila asked once, disappointment creeping into her voice. "I can't," I said. "You always say that." "I know." "You could just tell them no." I almost laughed. Tell them no. As if that had ever worked. The breaking point started building the year I turned 15. It didn't happen all at once. It never does. It builds quietly, layer by layer, until something small finally cracks everything open. For me, it was a party. Nothing special, just a group of classmates getting together at someone's house. Games, music, food, normal teenage stuff. I'd been looking forward to it for weeks. For once, my parents said yes. Actually said yes. Fine, Dad said, but don't make it a habit. I didn't care about the condition. I just cared that I was allowed to go. All week, I felt lighter. I planned what to wear. I imagined conversations that didn't revolve around bedtime routines or spilled juice. I let myself think, just for a little while, that I could be normal. 2 hours before the party, everything collapsed. Mom stood in the kitchen, keys in hand. "Change of plans," she said. "We're going out tonight." My stomach dropped. "You said I could go." "Plans change," she replied, already turning toward the door. "You'll stay here and watch everyone." Something inside me snapped. Not loudly, not dramatically, just cleanly. "I never get to go anywhere," I said, my voice shaking despite how hard I tried to keep it steady. "I'm 15. "And you're part of this family," Dad cut in, his tone sharp. "We provide for you. The least you can do is help." Help. That word again. I clenched my hands. "I'm not their mom." The room went quiet. Dad's expression darkened. "Watch your tone." I felt my chest tighten. "I just want one night." "Selfish," Mom said immediately. Like the word had been waiting. Like she had been saving it. Before I could respond, the front door opened. "Hey," a familiar voice called out. "Evan." My cousin. He stepped into the house, taking in the tension, the kids already starting to spiral into their usual evening chaos. "What's going on?" he asked. "Maya had plans," Mom said dismissively, "but we need her here." Evan looked at me, then at the kids, then back at my parents. "When's the last time she got to go out?" he asked quietly. "She's with her siblings all the time," Mom replied. "That's not the same thing." The air shifted. I felt it before I understood it. Evan turned to me. "Do you still want to go?" I hesitated. Because wanting something didn't usually matter. "Yeah," I admitted. He nodded once. "Then go." Mom scoffed. "Who's going to watch them?" "I will," Evan said simply. Silence. Heavy. Charged. "You don't understand," Dad started. "I understand perfectly," Evan cut in, calm but firm. "She's 15. She should be with people her age, not raising your kids." No one had ever said it out loud before. Not like that. Not in front of them. My heart started pounding. "Either I stay and help," Evan continued, "or you stay home. Your choice." For the first time in my life, someone chose me over convenience. I grabbed my jacket before they could change their minds. At the door, I paused, half expecting someone to stop me. No one did. That night, I went to the party. I ate pizza that no one threw on the floor. I laughed without listening for crying in the background. I sat on a couch and didn't have to hold anyone. It felt unreal, like stepping into someone else's life. When I got home, the house was still standing. Evan was on the couch, a baby sleeping against his shoulder. He looked up and smiled. "See," he said, "the world didn't end." I didn't say anything, because something had ended. The version of me that believed this was normal. From that night on, Evan stopped being just a cousin. He became proof. Proof that what I was living wasn't right. Proof that I wasn't crazy for feeling trapped. Proof that there was a way out. I just didn't know yet how far I would have to go to find it. If part 2 was the moment I realized something was wrong, part 3 was when it stopped being survivable. It happened the night Emma came home from the hospital. I remember standing in the hallway, watching my parents carry her inside like she was something fragile, something precious. For a moment, just a moment, I thought maybe this time would be different. Maybe they'd finally step up. Maybe they'd learn. Maybe this baby would actually have parents. I should have known better. An hour later, Dad walked into my room carrying the crib. Not asking. Not explaining. Just carrying it in. I stood up from my desk, slowly. "What are you doing?" "Setting this up," he said, already clearing space near my bed. "That's not going here." He didn't even look at me. "Your mom needs sleep. I've got early shifts. You're already used to handling the kids." The words landed like something heavy dropping inside my chest. "You're putting the baby in my room?" "It's temporary," he said casually, "until we figure something else out."
Temporary.
That word again. In my house, temporary meant permanent, until I broke. "I have school," I said, my voice quieter now. "So do a lot of people," he replied. "You'll manage." And that was it. No discussion. No negotiation. No acknowledgement that I was still a child. That night, Emma cried at 1:12 a.m. I remember the time because I stared at the clock like it might help me survive it. Then 2:03 a.m. Then 3:47 a.m. Each time I got up. Each time I warmed a bottle. Each time I rocked her back to sleep while my body begged me to stop moving. The hallway light stayed off. My parents' door stayed closed. In the morning, I walked into the kitchen with shaking hands. Mom sipped her coffee. "Why do you look so tired?" she asked. I stared at her. "You didn't hear her?" "Hear what?" The silence after that question felt louder than any crying. "You didn't hear her cry?" She shrugged. "I guess I slept through it." Of course she did. Because she knew I wouldn't. That became my life. Night after night. Bottle after bottle. Hour after hour of broken sleep. My room stopped being mine. The crib took up one wall. A changing table replaced my desk. Bottles, wipes, blankets, everything stacked around me like I lived inside a nursery instead of a bedroom. I stopped inviting people over. There was nothing to invite them into. At school, things started falling apart. I couldn't focus. I couldn't stay awake. I started missing assignments, then failing tests I should have passed easily. One afternoon, I woke up to someone gently tapping my desk. "Maya." I blinked, disoriented. My guidance counselor, Mrs. Reynolds, was crouched beside me. "Can we talk for a second?" I nodded, too tired to argue. In her office, she spoke carefully. "You've always been a strong student," she said, "but your grades have dropped significantly. Your teachers are concerned." I stared at my hands. "I'm fine." She didn't push. Not at first. But she leaned forward slightly. "Are you sleeping?" The question caught me off guard. I hesitated. Because answering honestly felt dangerous. Because if I said too much, everything might collapse. Not really." "Why?" I swallowed. "Just busy at home." She studied my face for a moment. "Would you be open to me speaking with your parents?" Every instinct in my body screamed no. "They won't help," I said quickly. "I'd still like to try." She called them anyway. And somehow, it got worse. That night, I stood in the hallway while Mom held the phone, laughing softly. "Oh, she's just going through a phase," she said. "You know how teenagers are, staying up too late, not managing their time." I felt something crack. Not loudly, not visibly, but deep enough that I knew it wasn't going to fix itself. When she hung up, she turned to me. "You need to be more responsible," she said. I almost laughed. Almost. Because what she meant was, you need to carry this better. You need to suffer more quietly. You need to stop making it visible. The final blow came a few months later. I got accepted into a summer engineering program. 3 weeks. That's all it was. 3 weeks of classes, projects, opportunities I'd never had before. When I read the acceptance email, my hands shook. Not from fear, from hope. Real, dangerous hope. I showed my parents that night. "I got in," I said, trying not to sound too excited. Mom skimmed the email. Dad leaned over her shoulder. Then they exchanged a look. And I knew. "Who's going to watch the kids?" Dad asked. The words hit harder than anything else they'd ever said. "It's only 3 weeks," I replied. "Evan said he could help on weekends." "We're not relying on Evan every time you want to do something," Mom said. "It's not just something," I said, my voice rising. "This matters." "So does this family," Dad snapped. Silence. Then, "You're not going." Just like that. No discussion. No compromise. No consideration. I stood there, holding the one thing that felt like a future, and watched it get taken away. That night, I sat on my bed while Emma slept beside me. The room felt smaller than ever, like the walls had finally decided to close in. That's when I understood something I had been avoiding for years. This wasn't temporary. This wasn't just a phase. This was my life. Unless I left. And for the first time, that thought didn't scare me. It felt like oxygen. The announcement came on a Tuesday night. Family meeting. That's what Mom called it. Like we were a team. Like we had a vote. We were all in the living room, kids scattered across the floor, noise already building in the background. Caleb arguing with Mason. Lily complaining about something sticky on her sleeve. Noah halfway under the coffee table. Oliver leaning against my leg like always. Emma in my arms, already restless. I should have known. Mom only gathered everyone like that when she wanted attention. She stood in the center of the room, smiling. The kind of smile that expected applause. "We have exciting news," she said. My stomach dropped before she even said the words. Because some part of me already knew. "We're having another baby." Silence. Not loud silence. Not dramatic silence. Just a shift. Like the room tilted slightly off balance. Caleb cheered first. "Another one? That's awesome." Mason looked confused. "Where is it going to sleep?" Lily wrinkled her nose. "Can I feed it?" Noah knocked something over. Oliver tightened his grip on my leg. And Emma started crying. Right on cue. I didn't move. I didn't speak. I just stared at my parents. Because the excitement on their faces didn't match reality. Not even a little. Dad stepped forward slightly, resting his hand on Mom's shoulder. "We're going to need more help this time," he said. More help. Like the last 6 hadn't already taken everything. "Good thing you're 18 now," he added, looking directly at me. The sentence landed slowly. Carefully. Deliberately. "You can take on more responsibility without any issues." Without any issues. That's when it clicked. Not emotionally. Logically. They had thought about this. They had planned for this. They weren't asking. They were preparing. Preparing to lock me in permanently. Something inside me went completely still. No anger. No yelling. Just clarity. I stood up carefully, shifting Emma into Mom's arms without a word. "I need to grab something," I said. No one stopped me. No one noticed the way my voice had changed. I walked down the hallway, into my room. My not really a room. Half nursery. Half leftover space. I closed the door quietly. Then I sat on the edge of my bed and stared at my phone. My hands weren't shaking. That surprised me. They should have been, but they weren't. Because this wasn't a reaction. This was a decision. I scrolled to one contact. Gramps. I pressed call. He picked up on the second ring. "Maya?" His voice was calm. Steady. Familiar. Everything my house wasn't. "Grandpa," I said. And for a second, my voice almost broke. I swallowed it down. "They're having another baby." Silence. Then, "You're kidding." "No." Another pause. Longer this time. Then his voice changed. Not louder. Sharper. "Pack a bag." That was it. No hesitation. No questions. Just essentials, he added. We're coming to get you. I looked around my room. At the crib. At the bottles. At the life that had been assigned to me. Okay, I said. I hung up. Then I moved. Not fast. Not frantic. Just efficiently. Clothes. Phone charger. A small folder where I kept anything important. Birth certificate, ID, school papers. I'd learned that much from watching everything fall apart around me. Take what matters. Leave the rest. Halfway through packing, the banging started. Maya! Mom's voice. Sharp. Demanding. Open the door. I didn't answer. Maya, this is not funny. Still nothing. The handle rattled. Dad's voice joined in. Don't start this. Start this. Like I was the one creating a problem. Like this hadn't been building for years. I zipped my bag. Took one last look at the room. Then I opened the door. They were standing there, waiting, expecting an explanation. What are you doing? Mom asked. Leaving, I said simply. She blinked. Like the word didn't make sense. You can't just leave. I stepped past her. Watch me. Dad moved in front of me, blocking the hallway. You don't get to walk out like this, he said. We're your parents. I looked at him, really looked at him, at the man who had watched me raise his children and called it help. You're the people who had me, I said quietly. That's not the same thing. Something flickered across his face. Anger. Confusion. Maybe even a hint of something else. But I didn't stay long enough to figure it out. Headlights flashed through the front window. Gramps. Nana. Right on time. I walked to the door, opened it, and for the first time in years, I didn't look back. Not until I was outside. Not until the night air hit my face. Not until Gramps stepped out of the car, his expression darker than I'd ever seen it. You ready? He asked. I nodded. Behind me, the house was already getting louder. Voices rising. Kids crying. Chaos building. The same chaos I had held together for years. And now, it wasn't mine anymore. Mom's voice cut through the noise. You're abandoning your family. I paused at the car door. Just for a second. Then I turned. No, I said. I'm saving myself. Gramps opened the trunk. Nana pulled me into a quick, tight hug. Then we got in the car. And we drove away. In the rearview mirror, I could see them standing in the doorway. Frozen. Surrounded by everything they had created. For once. With no one there to fix it. My phone started buzzing before we even reached the end of the street. I didn't check it. Not yet. Because for the first time in a long time, I didn't need to respond to anyone. My phone didn't stop vibrating until we were halfway across town. I kept it face down in my lap. Not because I was scared to read the messages. Because I already knew what they said. Anger first. Then guilt. Then something uglier. It always followed that order. When we pulled into my grandparents' driveway, Nana reached over and gently touched my hand. You don't have to look at it tonight, she said. I nodded. But I picked up the phone anyway. 43 messages. 12 missed calls. Most from Mom. Some from Dad. A few from unknown numbers I already knew belonged to relatives who had been recruited into whatever narrative my parents were building. I opened the first message. Mom, how could you do this to us? Second. Dad, get back here right now. Third. Mom, your siblings are asking for you. Oliver won't stop crying. I closed my eyes for a second. That one hit. Not because I felt guilty, because I knew it was strategic. They knew exactly which strings to pull. I kept scrolling. Dad, 2:07 a.m. Do you have any idea how much babysitters cost? There it was. Not, we miss you. Not, are you okay? Money.
Convenience. Loss of control.
I locked my phone, set it on the table, and exhaled. A real breath. The kind that doesn't feel like it has weight attached to it. The next morning, the calls started again. This time, louder. More aggressive. When I didn't answer, they escalated. You need to come home, Mom said in a voicemail. You're still in high school. You don't get to make decisions like this. Dad's voice followed. We're calling the police if you don't respond. I listened to that one twice. Not because I was scared. Because I wanted to make sure I heard it correctly. Then I handed my phone to Gramps. He listened. Didn't react immediately. Then nodded once. Good, he said. Let them. I frowned. Good? They just crossed from manipulation into stupidity. I didn't understand what he meant. Until the police actually showed up. 2 officers.
Calm. Professional.
Tired in the way people look when they've dealt with this kind of situation too many times. One of them, Officer Daniels, spoke to me privately. Are you here by choice? He asked. Yes. No one forced you to leave? No. He nodded. That's all I needed. He stepped outside. I stayed near the window. Close enough to hear. Not close enough to be seen. Mom's voice was sharp. She's our daughter. She can't just move out. Officer Daniels didn't raise his voice. Ma'am, she's 18. She's still in school. That doesn't change her legal status. Dad jumped in. They're manipulating her, turning her against us. The second officer sighed slightly. Did she come willingly? Yes. Then this isn't kidnapping.
Silence.
Then, this is ridiculous, Mom snapped. We'll call again if we have to. The officers exchanged a look. One I recognized. The look adults give when they realize they're dealing with people who won't listen. 2 days later, they actually called again. This time, the officer who showed up didn't even pretend to be patient. We've already explained this, he said flatly. Your daughter is an adult. She's making a mistake, Dad insisted. That may be, the officer replied, but it's her mistake to make. That should have been the end of it. But it wasn't. Because when control doesn't work, people escalate. That's when Gramps showed me the notebook. I didn't know he'd been keeping it. Months of entries. Dates.
Observations.
Small details I didn't even remember mentioning.
March 12th.
Maya fell asleep at the table mid-conversation. April 3rd. Missed school event. Said parents needed her to babysit. May 20th. Noticed dark circles under her eyes. Says baby sleeps in her room. Each line was simple. But together, they told the whole story. We weren't waiting for this to happen, Gramps said quietly. We were preparing for when it did. Evan had been doing the same. Saving texts. Screenshots. Messages where my parents told me to cancel plans. Photos I'd sent as jokes. Messy rooms. Kids out of control. Things I thought were normal enough to laugh about. Things that looked very different from the outside. That's when they called. Not the police. Someone else. Child Services. The investigation didn't take long, because the truth didn't need to be constructed. It was already there. The social worker, Ms. Carter, visited the house within days. I wasn't there, but I heard everything. From Evan. From Gramps. From the way the story spread through the family like something nobody could contain anymore. She walked into chaos. Not unusual chaos.
Neglectful chaos.
The kind that doesn't come from one bad day, but from a pattern. She asked simple questions. Who feeds the baby at night? Who helps with homework? Who gets everyone ready in the morning? The answers were consistent. Unfiltered. Because kids don't lie well when they don't know they're supposed to. Maya does, Caleb said. She always does. The house inspection made it worse. The crib had been in my room. They couldn't deny it. They tried to explain it. Tried to frame it as temporary. Helpful. Normal. It didn't work. 3 weeks. That's how long it took. 3 weeks of visits.
Interviews.
Documentation. Then the decision came.
Official.
Written.
Final.
Inappropriate delegation of parental responsibilities. That was the phrase.
Cold.
Clinical.
Accurate.
The consequences followed immediately. Mandatory parenting classes. Supervised home visits. Required childcare arrangements. Standards they actually had to meet. For the first time, they were being held to the same expectations they had ignored for years. And it hit them where it mattered most. Time.
Money. Reputation.
Babysitters cost money. A lot of it. Time spent parenting meant less time pretending they didn't have responsibilities. And people talk, especially when the story shifts. At a family gathering a few weeks later, Aunt Karen tried to defend them. They're just close, she said. Some families work differently. Evan didn't even hesitate. Close doesn't mean using your kid as a replacement parent.
Silence.
No one argued. Because this time, there was proof. As for me, I slept. That was the first thing. Real sleep. No crying. No interruptions. No responsibility waiting for me the second I opened my eyes. Then my grades started climbing again. Slow at first, then faster. Like my brain had been waiting for rest to function properly. I reapplied. Got into a spring engineering program. Not the same one I lost, but close enough to remind me I still had a future. Gramps got me a part-time job at a friend's auto shop. Real work. Paid work. Work that ended when my shift did.
Revolutionary.
My parents stopped calling as much. Not because they understood, because they had to. They didn't have the time anymore. For the first time in years, they were busy raising their own children. The irony wasn't lost on me. The relationship? It's not fixed. It might never be, but I'm not waiting for it to be. Because I finally understand something I didn't before. Leaving didn't break my family. It just exposed what was already broken. And for the first time in my life, I'm not the one holding the pieces together anymore.